Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is the pre-show for Coffee and Real Estate. I hope you're having a great weekend. I'm still recovering from my road trip. For those of you who follow me on Twitter, X, I just did a road trip to Yellowstone and stopped off at Idaho Falls on the way for their largest 4th of July fireworks show west of the Mississippi event. So that was fun. I'd never been to Idaho Falls before. I kind of dig it. Ended up doing what I always do when I go someplace new and ended up looking at some houses. And I might change my opinion maybe in the depths of winter when it's snowing. But I like Idaho Falls. I think it's a beautiful place. The eastern 2/3 of Nevada, not so much, mostly desert. It's a unique beauty, I guess. It's a desert beauty, but not a place for me. Not a place for me. So if you've got any questions, feel free to post them. I have the chat up, and I'm almost sure that I will see any comment made from any place I'm currently streaming to, the way I currently have it set up. So, and for those of you watching the video, you'll also see them show up over here. They should, most of the things I think will show up there. I don't think Facebook stuff will. But in any event, I'll see any Facebook stuff on my second screen, and I will be happy to try to navigate any questions you might have. And I'm not gonna throw bull your way. If I don't know the answer to your question, I'm not gonna answer it. But we can probably poke around a bit and find an answer while we're here on the show. And I want to thank all of you who reach out to me. I realize there's some of you got super busy schedules. Carving out time to sit with me for an hour on a Saturday morning is not viable. But I do appreciate all the folks who reach out to me, who watch the show as a replay on all the various platforms, or whether it's YouTube or X or Facebook or anywhere else. That's the one platform I didn't check. Are we live on X? Let's find out. Yes, we are. We are live on X. Outstanding. Okay, perfect. All right. But again, welcome to it. It is July, and this is Coffee and Real Estate Live Chat for July, where we're going to talk about June's numbers. For those of you who are fresh and new to this, and let's see, do we have anybody with us yet? I don't see it on any platform yet, but we'll see how it goes. I'm not seeing the part of the screen where it tells me where people are on the various platforms. But in any event, interesting numbers. And I, as I've mentioned in past live streams, June is a big month. June is a big deal, particularly in this local market. In all of Santa Clara County, all of Silicon Valley, June is considered the month, right? It's where you tend to get your highest price. It's where you tend to sell the fastest. So all of the things that should make a summer market a hot market happen in June. So where did we land? For those of you, again, who follow me on X, I've been posting some very just basic numbers on the markets for Santa Clara County, San Jose, Morgan Hill, and Gilroy. And we didn't really hit what you would expect to hit in a June for Silicon Valley. And we're also, in certain metrics relating to national numbers versus local numbers, we are outperforming in a bad way national numbers. So we'll take a look at those too. We've got a lot of stuff that we can cover today. And as always, I want your questions. And for those of you who are watching this as a replay, now obviously we're live right now, so you can ask your question and we can try to work through them here together. But if you are someone who is listening to the show as a replay, let me just encourage you to participate in the live event. And I get some people just can't do that, and that's fine. But I always love the idea of making this kind of a force multiplier, right? Where you may ask a question. For every person who asks me a question, I'm willing to bet there are dozens of others with the same question. And I would love to use this as a platform to be able to share your question and thoughtfully explore it and answer it, so that not only you benefit, but everyone who follows on with the same question will benefit. So if you're able to make the time to join me on a Saturday morning, please do. The coffee today is disappointing. I have to admit it. I made it, but I think I must have not put something in because it doesn't taste right. And yet I still drink it. It's got kind of a weird hazelnuttiness to it, and it shouldn't. I don't understand why. Or maybe is that cinnamon? Did I put too much cinnamon? I don't know. Excuse me. Excuse me. We're about 8 minutes away from kicking the show off for realsies. For those of you who are new, my name's Robert Whitelaw. I'm a licensed real estate broker right here in the state of California. I've been a real estate agent since 1988. Got a broker's license in the early 2000s, and I've been kind of doing my own thing since then. But I've been helping people in the Silicon Valley buy, sell, invest in real estate for a very long time. I feel like I've accumulated an awful lot of useful knowledge that I can put to work for you and whatever your real estate goals might be. So no matter what your goals are, feel free to reach out to me. You can find me at soldbyrobert.com. Got some great tools there for buyers and sellers, and some easy ways to get in touch with me. So feel free to reach out if you'd like to chat about your goals and how I might help you achieve them. Let's see. About 7 minutes. Not seeing any chats. I do see a couple of folks who've popped on. For the folks on YouTube, thank you for joining me this morning. We're just a few minutes away from kicking off the show, where we're going to explore all the latest numbers relating to real estate in our local market. Last time was weird. Last time and you know, who knows, the bots just could have been out in force. I had a few folks watching from the UK last time, which I guess isn't ridiculous, but it's like almost it's the evening, right? It's like right now, as it is 5 minutes of 10, it is 5 minutes of 6 p.m. in London. But for those of you in London, who knows? Maybe you're old friends of mine from when I lived in Hampton Hill. That's a possibility. I still have friends I talk to that I met when I was living in London, and that was a great time. Real estate's very different in England. They have estate agents, and what's weird about an estate agent is you could get out of prison on Monday and be an estate agent on Tuesday. Lawyers, barristers typically manage their property transfer processes and all that kind of stuff. So really, estate agents there are just the guys with the keys to get you into properties. I think I like our system better. But hey, I'm willing to have a chat about it. But yeah, I met quite a few estate agents, and in terms of totally not knowing what you're doing, despite the fact that we have an awful lot of folks who are licensed in the United States as agents who don't know what they're doing, the number of folks, at least in the area I was looking, so like Twickenham, Teddington, those areas, they know nothing. They're just door openers. So, all right, we're about 5 minutes off from kicking things off. I'm trying to think if there's anything super amazing. So Yellowstone was amazing. You know, maybe it would have been good to queue up. So bison walking along the road, like almost arm's reach of a bison, which they're wild animals. Don't mess with them. But that was kind of spectacular. What amazes me, okay, well, let's just share this. So what amazes me is the crush of humanity that goes to Yellowstone. It amazes me how many people apparently can't read. There are signs all over the place if you're coming in from the west, right? If you're coming in from West Yellowstone, which is a city there, which is where I was staying, and you're coming into Yellowstone, there's all these signs that say, do not park, do not walk, do not get out of your car. I mean, just don't. And at the first sight of an elk or anything else, these people are pulling over and stopping. And it's only one lane in and one lane out, and you can't really pull over in an awful lot of places, but boy, would they do it anyway, and just screw everything up for everybody else. What was amazing was one of the biggest offenders were these tour vans that were taking people around that were doing it. So that was a shocker. My suggestion, if you want to go to Yellowstone and enjoy it and try to get the naturalness of it rather than the Disneyland Crush of Humanity style version of Yellowstone. Show up just before sunrise, enjoy a little bit of the sunrise, and then start seeing the big things like Old Faithful and that big, amazing, I forget what they call it. Do they call it God's Eye? But anyway, all the best moments for me and for the buddy that was with me on this trip were early in the day, because by around 8:30 or 9 o'clock, the crush comes in, and it's crazy. So yeah, I guess I'll call that a pro tip. I'm not a pro, but I'll call it a pro tip. So feel free to take that for what it's worth. Anything else since the last time we spoke? Looks like we got a couple of more folks who've joined the stream. Thanks for joining me this morning. I hope your weekend has some awesome plans other than just spending a little time with me. If you're planning to go look at houses today, hopefully this will be good information for you. And here's something else. So I have a financial advisor guy that I talk to every now and then. And he's buying a place outside of the area I serve. And he was telling me the deal he was getting on his loan. And I'm like, that doesn't, did you talk to other people, or is this guy like a friend of yours? Is this loan somebody you kind of just hooked up with because they were within reach? And I just mentioned to him, you should check out Bankrate. Here's a link. Go check out rates here. Get several different banks bidding for your business, because I know you well enough to know you're probably a very low financial risk in terms of a mortgage, and just see what you can make happen. So that was a conversation we had, I don't know, a month ago. Had another conversation with him a week ago, and boy, was he thankful. He was showering me with praises for turning him on to actually shopping for a mortgage, because he got a much better deal. He got a better rate. He got lower fees and no points and all these other kinds of wonderful things. So I say that less to be yay me for helping somebody, and more, make sure you're doing the same thing in your own life. Treat loans like products, right? Whether it's a car loan, a home loan, whatever. It's a product. Just like all the different kinds of bread you can buy in the aisle at the supermarket, there's all kinds of different loan products you can buy with all kinds of different things in them. And some are going to be good for you and some are going to be bad for you. And you can definitely shop around and find yourself something awesome. All right, we are 1 minute away from kicking off the show for real this morning. I thank those of you who decided to join me. Thank you for your patience as we approach the final hour where we're going to begin. Again, this is the Coffee and Real Estate Live Chat. This is something I do once a month on the third Saturday of every month, so that we can try to stay up to date on the latest information relating to real estate and how it affects us. I mean, after all, our home is our biggest investment, and for a lot of people, it's the vehicle through which you're going to retire. And I know I'm almost there. I'm actually considering putting my home on the market in 2026. We can talk about how smart that is or isn't. If anyone's interested in having that conversation about things you should be thinking if you're winding up to sell your home. But as I've said to other people who want to list their home, here I am 8 months away probably from putting my home on the market, and I am now in home prep mode to potentially get my home sold. So the earlier you make the decision so that you can start doing stuff with your home to get it going is an optimal thing. All right, so here we are. Welcome to it. It is 10 a.m. on the third Saturday of the month, July 2025. My name's Robert Whitelaw. I'm a licensed real estate broker right here in Santa Clara County, and this is the Coffee and Real Estate Live Chat. I've been doing this for a very long time. I got licensed as a real estate agent first in 1988, way back in the olden days, and then in the early 2000s got my broker's license, and I've been helping people realize their goals in buying, selling, and investing in real estate ever since. So well over 35 years doing this. And if you are interested in having a conversation or engaging with someone who can help you reach your real estate goals, feel free to reach out to me. You can find me at soldbyrobert.com, where you'll be able to find my phone number, email me through the site, whatever, in order to reach out. So feel free to do that and take advantage of it. What we're going to do here today is what we do every month, and we're going to start off by hitting the big numbers, and then we'll start hitting some news items, and we'll also cover where mortgage rates are at. Mortgage rates are better than they have been in the near term of the past, not as great as in the longer term, going back to, say, 2022 or 2021, but it could be worse. Speaking as someone who has seen mortgage rates as high as 13%. So let's go ahead and jump in. We're going to start with the latest numbers. And of course, when we do that, we always start with, what the heck? Whoops. All right. Sorry, I was controlling the wrong thing. We're going to start with the total active listings. So just to calibrate you, total active listings is the total inventory, right? Not a hard concept to grasp. But there's always two perspectives on it, right? One is, as a seller, how much competition do I have? Well, this is that, right? If you're in Santa Clara County and you're selling your single home, then you have 2,317 other people also trying to get the attention of buyers to get your home sold. If you're a buyer, this is how many products are on the housing shelf for you to peruse. And you can see that right now in Santa Clara County, the total number of homes on the market is up 37% from the same time last year. So June of 2024 up to 2025, we saw 1,693 homes for sale last year. And this year, June of 2025, we see 2,318. Ridiculous increase. And it's also interesting to see that this number has been increasing every single month for like the last 6 to 7 months, which is also not normal. Usually by the time we get, and we'll see, we're doing this year-to-year comparison, but after we finish with the year-to-year comparisons, we're just going to look over our shoulder at past months and see what the month-to-month changes are, so we can see if we can't read the crystal ball a little bit and see where we're going. Now in San Jose, inventory is up 41%. It was 830 homes in June of 2024. In June of 2025, we're sitting at 1,174 total homes on the market. In Morgan Hill, it's up 45%. 84 homes last year, 122 homes in June of 2025. In Gilroy, last year, in June of 2024, we had 92 homes on the market. In June of 2025, we've got 127 for a 38% total increase in overall inventory. Now, as we move on, let's see how many new homes got added to the marketplace, meaning how many homeowners decided to become home sellers and signed a listing agreement with a real estate agent and put the home on the market. So in June of 2024, in Santa Clara County, we had 1,483 homes put on the market. In Santa Clara County in 2025, in June, we had 1,573 for only a 6% increase. Now, despite that, remember, we still have a dramatic increase in the total inventory from the same time last year. Now, in San Jose, that number's up 5%. Last year, June of 2024, we had 753 homes for sale in San Jose. And then this year, June of 2025, we have 788 homes. Let's see. In Morgan Hill, an 18% increase in the total home inventory compared to last year. In June of 2024, we had 71 homes for sale. In June of 2025, we have 84 homes for sale. And then finally in Gilroy, it's a wash. We have the same number of homes for sale in June of 2024 as we do in 2025 for 68 homes total. I think that is, Gilroy is always a little bit of an outlier, but there's something else to keep in mind about Gilroy. Frequently, Gilroy is where you're going to see things happen first when a market changes, particularly when a market is in decline. This was very true back in the downturn of say 2007, and we'll keep an eye on that because just keep in mind what you're seeing in Gilroy may end up migrating further north up into the core of Santa Clara County. Now, let's go ahead and move on and take a look at the total number of homes sold. So these are the homes that closed escrow, meaning the seller got paid, the buyer paid for the house. It changed ownership from the seller to the buyer, and it was concluded. The transaction was done. Now, in Santa Clara County, this number was down 3%. 1,172 homes were sold in June of 2024. 1,139 homes were sold in June of 2025. In San Jose, it was down 4%, 579 homes sold last year in June of 2024, 555 this year in June. In Morgan Hill, it's down 34%, 53 homes sold last year, 35 homes sold this year. And in Gilroy, we saw 33 homes sell in June of 2024 and 31 homes sell in June of 2025 for a 6% drop overall. So across the board, home sales are down, and across the board, inventory is up. So that is one of the big themes, I think, that we all need to sort of digest and understand as a reality right now. Next, but before we move on from home sold, next let's talk about how that changed the landscape. Did these numbers end up contributing more homes to the total inventory or subtracting? So here's the thing. We ended up selling, despite the fact that it wasn't a huge drop in home sales, we ended up selling far fewer homes than we listed. So in Santa Clara County overall, we added 434 more homes to inventory. This is also something that's not typical for June. June is typically a number with a lot of sales, and we didn't see that. In San Jose, we added 233 homes to inventory. In Morgan Hill, we added 49 homes to inventory. And in Gilroy, we added 37 homes to inventory. So in no cases did we end up selling more homes than got listed for that month. And also what's happening right now is the homes that are selling, and we'll talk about this when we do days on market numbers, but the reality is that we're only selling the very best homes in each home category, and those categories sub-break into region and price and amenities, so beds and baths, that type of thing. The best examples are selling fast, and the others are simply staying on the market for a very long time, which causes a little bit of a dichotomy in terms of days on market. But again, we'll talk about that in a minute. All right, next, let's take a look at months of inventory. And months of inventory is to get an idea of where the balance of the market is. And the idea is that for the month of June, let's go ahead and freeze the total number of homes that sold, and let's freeze the total inventory and assume that those just stay the same over the following months. And if that were to happen, how many months would it take to sell off the inventory? A balanced market is considered 4 months, 4.5 months. And we have not been close to that number in a very long time. It has been all about being more of a seller's market, but we've seen that shift in one of our markets, and we'll see that here in a second. Now, in Santa Clara County, it was 1.4 months a year ago. It's 2 months this year. That's a 43% increase. In San Jose, in June of 2024, it was 1.4 months, just like the county, but it had just a little bit more months of inventory this year for June of 2025 at 2.1 months. That's a 50% increase. Morgan Hill, a 119% increase. We had 1.6 months of inventory in June of 2024, and in June of 2025, we had 3.5 months of inventory. It's a big jump. In Gilroy, 46% jump, 2.8 months of inventory in June of 2024, 4.1 months of inventory in June of 2025. So given these numbers, I think what we can do is at least consider the possibility that Gilroy is now officially leaning into being a buyer's market. Now, at 4.5, a balanced market, right? 4.4 to 4.5 is considered a balanced market. But I would say that given the rate of change here and given what we're seeing in the market overall and what we've seen in Gilroy for a while, it's shifting more towards being a buyer's market. And the other number we're going to see that talks more about this is going to be what percentage of inventory has had price decreases, and we'll be covering that one at the end. Next, let's see here. Next, we're going to talk about homes pending or contingent. So what does that mean? Once a home goes pending or contingent, that means an offer has been accepted. And normally what happens, it goes contingent first, meaning that the buyer has contingencies that they could use to get out of the deal. So that's stuff like the inspection contingencies or the loan contingencies, those types of things. And then pending means those contingencies have already been signed off by the buyer, meaning that if they were to back out of the deal, they'd lose a chunk of their deposit. So again, think of this as a leading indicator of how many homes are going to see sold next month. Because if it goes pending in this month, there's a really good chance it's going to go sold next month, depending on how long the escrow is. So in Santa Clara County, the number of offers that were accepted by sellers was down 4%. It was 1,090 a year ago, 1,041 in June of 2025. In San Jose, in June of 2024, 532 homes accepted offers. In June of 2025, 504 homes accepted offers. That's a 5% drop from the same time last year. Morgan Hill, 47 homes last year accepted an offer. This year, June 2025, 46 homes accepted an offer, so down 2%. Gilroy down 3% from the same time last year. June of 2024, they saw 33 homes accept an offer from a buyer. In June of 2025, that dropped down to 32. Now, given the small sample sizes for Morgan Hill and Gilroy, I think we can just call those numbers a wash, basically equal. But overall, given the historical context of what we've been seeing in these two areas, it is a decline. So the level of interest in those two communities is staying about the same or declining, and I think it's leaning towards declining. Okay, next, let's talk a little bit about average original list price. And I use this number because, and I don't know a lot of agents who do, and I know I say that every time, but a lot of folks just ignore this number, and I think that's a bad strategic move. This is a way to get a feeling for where sellers' expectations are. How much did sellers expect to get for their home? This number represents when they signed the listing agreement with the agent, and when that listing agreement or the listing was entered into the multiple listing service, this was the price that they entered, right? So this was expectations. This was hopes on the part of the seller. And this is a way to compare it between this year and last year. So last year in Santa Clara County, the average original list price was $1,870,000. This year, it's $1,968,000 for a 5.2% increase. In San Jose, it's up 5.1%, $1,430,000 last year, $1,502,000 this year in June of 2025. In Morgan Hill, it's up 6.2%, $1,598,000, almost $99,000. This year, $1,698,000, almost $99,000. In Gilroy, up 4.7%, $1,363,000 last year, $1,428,000 this year. So across the board, positive numbers, right? My guess is, though, that as we move further into this market, unless we have a big change, unless we see a big drop in interest rates or something like that, given the stresses we're seeing of inventory, it wouldn't surprise me if sellers get more calibrated to the realities of the market and maybe start asking a little bit less. But remember, these are just hoped for numbers. Next, let's talk about what homes actually sold for. And we can see that these are numbers that in some cases are more than what the sellers were hoping for. So in Santa Clara County, the average sales price a year ago in June of 2024 was $2 million. In June of 2025, that number is $2,127,000. That's a 6.4% jump from the same time last year. In San Jose, the number's up 4.2%. It was $1,556,000 last year. It's $1,621,000 this year. Morgan Hill, 9.1% jump from the same time last year. $1,572,000 last year. $1,715,000 this year. In Gilroy, $1,254,000 last year, $1,315,000 this year for a 4.8% jump. So now let's think about this in terms of calibrating it with expectations. Compared to what sellers were hoping for in June of 2025, how did they do for the homes that sold? So in Santa Clara County overall, on average, sellers got $159,000 over expectations when compared to the original list price. In San Jose, the average seller got $118,000 over the anticipated hoped for sales price. In Morgan Hill, $16,338 over expected hoped for price. And in Gilroy, $112,712 below expectations. So the sales price of $1,315,000 is below $1,428,000. $1,428,000 was the average original sales price, which also reflects, I think, what we're going to see in terms of the number of homes that are seeing price reductions. Okay, next, let's talk about percent over or under asking price. Now, we have been looking at this one for a while. This just basically tells us how much over asking price have been people been willing to pay. You can see there's been huge drops in this number when compared to last year. So in Santa Clara County, it's down a net 3.1%. Last year, 106.2%, meaning buyers were paying on average 6.2% above asking price for homes that were listed on the market. This year, in June of 2025, they're paying 3.1% over asking price, which is still nuts given what we're seeing. But we're gonna talk about this. This is tempered data because if you don't understand the ground reality, this can still seem like, oh wow, it's a fairly robust market, which isn't the case. It's robust for the ones that are actually selling, but as I said before, the homes that are actually selling are a very small chunk of what's currently out there, and they are the best examples in their selected markets. In San Jose, it's down 4.2%. Last year, 106.6% of asking price, meaning seller or buyers were paying 6.6% over asking. Now it's 102.4. Morgan Hill, 102.8 last year, or 2.8% over asking. This year, 101.1, so 1.1% over asking price in June of 2025 for a 1.7% overall change in that number. Gilroy, 101.3 last year, 100.3 this year. So buyers on average are paying just a little bit over asking price on average on the homes that sell for a 1% overall change in Gilroy. Next, let's talk about days on market. Now, we can obviously see all of these numbers are big, but remember, these are only numbers for properties that have sold, right? Not all the ones that are currently on the market. Now, when I first ran these numbers, because I want you to kind of keep this in your head as we go through this, I did a search of all the homes that are for sale, and I got an average of how many days on market, on average, do all the homes, just the ones on the market, not the ones that have sold, just the ones on the market. And the number was more like 60 days, 60 plus days. So why are these numbers so low? Well, let's cover them first, and then we'll have a little chat about that. So first, it's a 31% increase in Santa Clara County from 16 days last year in June of 2024 to 21 days this year, June of 2025. San Jose, even bigger jump, 40%, 15 days last year, 21 days this year. Morgan Hill, a 20% increase, 15 days last year, 18 days this year. And in Gilroy, it's only a 4% jump. Like I said, Gilroy is a leading indicator or a leading warning light for an awful lot of things in the marketplace. So they've been seeing increasing days on market for a lot longer than some of these other marketplaces, which is why last year it was 23 days and this year it's 24 days. But let's talk about this number for a second, because really anything 14 to 18 days, right in that ballpark, is an artificial number, meaning when a real estate agent takes a listing, by and large, they will put into the listing a notice saying, we're not going to accept any offers until such and such a date. And that date is usually 10 to 16 days after the home's been listed. I know in my case, I like to have at least 2 open house weekends, particularly in today's market, where getting eyes on the houses is key. I know agents that don't even want listings anymore because there's so much trouble selling them, right? So they want the easier path and to get themselves a good qualified buyer. But this represents what homes that sold were on the market for. And this emphasizes that it's a cycle where the newest homes that are listed are getting attention and getting sold if they are the best example in their category. And the category is defined by whatever means most to the buyers. And typically what we're going to see is at least 3 bedrooms, at least 2 bathrooms, and everything about it is in great shape, right? It's got an updated kitchen. It's got updated bathrooms. It is freshly painted. It is beautiful to look at from the curb. What you're seeing is the numbers for the best homes that are put onto the market, which emphasizes a couple of things, right? One, if you're a seller, you need to assure that your home is one of those homes if you want to get it sold quickly, right? Because holding costs, delays, all that kind of stuff, nobody wants that. And frankly, given the way things are going with inventory and everything else, every day your home stays on the market, the likelihood is that you will have to sell it for less, right? So in other words, if you were to sell your house today, there's a very high likelihood that you will have to sell it for far less than what you want a month from now. In other words, if the right price today is $1 million, The right price in 30 days is not $1 million. It might be $980,000, right? Depending on what's happening in the market, depending on what influences there are happening in your local area. But the key here is a couple of takeaways. One, you really have to price your home right out of the gate. Two, you have to put in the effort to make sure the home is best in class when it hits the market. And you have to make sure that whoever's handling your marketing of your home is doing a blitz, right? All the stuff, right? And that includes not just emails and digital marketing, which is super easy and for the most part cheap, except for a few exceptions. They also need to be doing physical mail. You got to embrace the old school stuff too, and most agents don't do that. But you should emphasize that you want to see all the avenues of advertising and anything. What unique ways are they going to advertise your property, right? And usually in my world, it depends on where your house is, right? What things. Like a good example is a listing I had in San Martin down here in the down here in the Morgan Hill South Valley area, and great proximity to the airport, the private airport here. So one of the things I did was market to all of the private airfields all the way up to the peninsula, and ended up selling it to someone who had been spending a huge chunk of money parking their plane at like Reed Hillview or I can't remember, Palo Alto. I can't remember where it was, but they ended up moving down here and cutting their rental costs on where they were parking their plane by something like 70%. Just some crazy number. But anyway, it's things like that. You got to think creatively. You got to get access to the most likely buyers. Who is going to love that house and really want it because of things it has access to or because of things it has intrinsically, those types of things. Okay. Let's go ahead and check out the next one. And this is where we're going to be looking over our shoulder at past months and try to get some insights out of that. So the first thing we're going to check out is total active listings. And this is an interesting one. You can see that really since April, we've kind of had just a flat amount of listings. You can see from the chart, blows away the total number of listings going all the way back to December of 2022 and much further back than that. Crazy inventory numbers. But if you look at past years, it's not typical for us to peak in April and stay at that peak through June. Usually you hit our peak in May, and that usually coincides with new listings, right? In preparation for June, what you normally see is that in April and May, you see more listings coming on the market because they don't want to miss June, because June is sort of the month, right? We didn't see that in 2023. 2023 was a weird year, and we don't want another 2023, right? 2023 was just like 2022 was crazy. Interest rates going up late, and then things getting crazy in 2023. So not a typical year. A lot of flat in 2023. So we'll look primarily on 2024 to get some insights into this one. So what should we expect to see? A little bit bigger decline from May, June, July of last year compared to this year. Things are staying more robust, which implies less of a sell-off of listings, which I think absolutely is represented by the numbers. But it's the peak that we're at that's really kind of a mind blower. Next, let's take a look at total new listings. Check out that drop in new listings. Now, we normally see a drop in new listings, but notice that we had our peak in April. Last year, our peak was May. And the year before that, our peak was May. So people kind of jumped into the marketplace a month earlier in terms of what we're seeing in trends for this year. But boy, did we see a drop off. And that's also normal. We normally see a drop off from May to June. And if we take a look at where we're likely to go from here, it's likely to continue declining for the next 2 months. And then we see where the market goes from there. Since we're not seeing huge increases in the number of homes that are selling, I think we can simply expect those new listings to accumulate, and we may see overall inventory jumping at a greater rate than we've seen in past years. So in terms of estimating where things are going to go from here, I think that we're probably going to see another month or two of declines in listings. We may get another little bump in September. Maybe not. A bump in September would be a little bit weird, but we had one last year. We didn't have a bump. We got a little bit of a bump in August of 2023, but again, 2023 was kind of a funky year. Next, let's talk about homes sold. We can see that leading up to June this year, we kind of actually peaked in April. Last year, we peaked in May, and then in 2023, we peaked in May, June. And look at how low that peak is. We definitely did not do exceptionally well for a June, a May, June. But if we consider where things are likely to go from here, we should see a decline. So this should be it. June was it. That we should see declines in homes sold. And it wouldn't surprise me if we see a greater decrease in homes sold than we saw in 2024. So if you look at how the numbers go for 2024, and then just a steady decline in homes sold, I think we see the same thing moving on from June of 2025, but perhaps an even greater rate of decline than we saw last year. Next, let's talk about pending. Check out that drop. What's really interesting is we see, compared to past years, it is very similar. Usually we do see a drop in new listings, homes that go pending or homes that accept an offer. And then a bit of a decline after that. And obviously that's going to rely on how many new listings are coming on board, because right now buyers are being more picky. They're only selling newly listed homes that are the best in the example. And if we're not listing more homes, if we're seeing an overall decline, that would reflect an overall decline in the likely pendings. So I think that's probably what we will see. And we'll see. And the one number that's probably confusing a lot of folks is the fact that homes are still selling for more this year than they did last year. My suggestion would be, don't take that as a market indicator overall, because remember, those are an extreme minority of homes that were best in class. I think there are still deals to be found if you're not requiring that the home be perfect in every way when you move in, and recognizing that there are some things that are relatively easy for you as a buyer to do that can benefit you greatly. And it's to the point now where I think that a buyer out there who is looking to purchase in any of these markets, if you go in there and filter it by homes that have been on the market for more than 30 days, I think you're going to find perfectly adequate homes where psychologically the seller has now reached the point where they're willing to entertain lower offers. So just consider that as an option. Next, let's talk about average list price versus average sales price. Yeah, I did. I hit that button twice. I made a mistake. Dang it. I'll get there, I promise. Doink and doink and doink. There we go. Oh, I did it again. Did I hit the button again? I hope I didn't. All right, there we go. All right. So average list price versus average sales price. And again, this is original price. We can see that average sales price is still over. It has been, we had it the other way around in February, where homes were selling for less than average list price. And then as of March, things have been nothing but over average sales price. What's interesting is they diverged in June. So that was the big June payoff, right? June is supposed to be the hottest month. The big payoff for June was sellers got a little bit more for their house. But that seems to be it. We didn't see a big rush of homes selling. Still saw a huge accumulation of homes listed. And I think moving forward, what we're likely to see, if we look at past years, in 2023, the numbers were almost the same. In 2024, same thing. We saw homes in June selling for more than asking price. But we also then saw them converge in August. So we'll see what happens in July. But I would say July, August, September, October, that 3-month window, I think is going to be very informative. And it wouldn't surprise me if we see homes selling for less than expectations throughout the rest of the year. Given the accumulation of homes, I just don't see any other way you can respond to it other than reducing prices. For those sellers that absolutely have to sell, the only thing they can control is the asking price. And if they need to get sold, that's what's going to have to change. All right, next. Now, this is the percent of asking price, and you can see how the trend goes, right? There's no mystery to this trend. We've got, February, March, April, May, June right here. We've got March, April, May right here, where we peaked at 9% over asking price. It's always the summer months, right? Last month it came early. Last year it came early. This year it really came early. And this is when a lot of new homes get listed, January and February. So again, that phenomena of good homes being listed and selling quickly not only generated that reality, but it also gave us folks being willing to pay 7.5 over asking price. We are now down to 103.1 or 3.1% over asking price on average. My feeling is that this number is going to continue to go down. If we look at what typically happens in June, if you see here, typically it drops through the rest of the year. June of last year, we see its peak was in July. I don't think we're going to see that this year. I think we're going to see a very funky early peak in February that shows nothing but declines all the way to December. Now, I made this call last year. I honestly thought we'd get under 100. I thought we'd be seeing homes selling on average for below asking price by November or December of last year. Did not happen, right? We were still right around here at that point. Given that where we are now, and given this is the most depressed time of the year normally when we hit into winter in November, December, January, the fact that we're here now, which is lower than all of those months, tells me we have got nowhere near the floor on this number. So I think we're going to see this continue to decline to the point where it could be below 100% by the end of the year. Okay, next. Days on market. And again, this is super deceiving because remember, I did a check on all of the properties and it was up around 60%, or up around 60 days. It's probably even higher now. When I checked this, that was 2 weeks ago. So these are the successful sellers' days on market numbers, meaning you listed your home and you actually got it sold. For every one of those people, there are hundreds of others who have not sold, who are still in the market trying to get sold, whose homes have been on the market for months. So what do we see here in terms of trends? If we look at June here, we can see we had a ramp up from April to June in terms of days on market with a slight reduction in the rate of the increase to June from May. If we look last year, we can see kind of just a steady increase all the way up until hitting September. June of 2023, again, a weird year, but again, a ramp up until we hit January. And the reason why we see this big jump in January is because a bunch of sales happened where older inventory got sold off. You normally see a peak like this just as buyers come out, because then you get sold properties that suddenly can generate how many days on the market was this property, and boom, there it is, right? Same thing happened in January of 2025. So think of that less as some bad market thing that's happened and more we're selling off old inventory and it's happening that month, right? Does that make sense? Okay. Next, let's take a look at the homes, the percentages of folks that have had price reductions in the month. So we can see that last month, Santa Clara County had 26% of the overall inventory have a price reduction. Same number this month, 26%. But year over year, if we compare June of 2024 to June of 2025, that's a 69% increase from the same time last year. In San Jose, again, a wash, 29% last month, 29% this month, but it's a 79% increase from the same time last year. Morgan Hill, we saw a jump, 27% last month, 31% this month, for an 81% jump in the total number of properties with price reductions. That is a huge number. It's very interesting to see that in Morgan Hill. Morgan Hill is kind of a weird outlier in terms of how sellers are calibrated to the market, that type of thing. In Gilroy, 25% last month, 24% this month. Interesting, because I think that my sort of running commentary on Gilroy for a long time has been that market's a little bit more calibrated to the realities of the marketplace than other places are. Morgan Hill just famously is typically very disconnected from reality, or has been in the past. It's more connected to reality now than it was. But expectations on the part of sellers have been ridiculously high in the past in terms of what folks were estimating their homes were worth. But again, Gilroy a little bit more calibrated, so it's a 24% increase from the same time last year. But again, about a quarter of their inventory has seen price reductions. And I like Gilroy. Gilroy is a great community. The Northwest, Northeast areas. Northeast is more estates where you're going to spend millions and millions. Northwest, right where Christopher High School is, that's a great neighborhood, and it's going to be far more reasonable in that area. So if you're looking for a good deal, reach out, because I think there's some good ones to be had in Gilroy. Okay, let's delve into the wide, wonderful world of the internets and see what we've got. As you can see, I've got the mortgage information up because there's an interesting disconnect. I think that there's the national numbers, and they're probably just trying to give an idea of what the average person with the average credit history can achieve, and that's at 6.81% for a 30-year fixed. But I always like to temper that with a reality check. So let's assume you've got great credit. And I'm using 95037, but after a lot of research, I've discovered anywhere from San Jose down to Gilroy, the same loans are going to be available to you. And take away a couple of things that I think are interesting in this. Number one, I'm using $1.715 million as the average, as a purchase price, with 20% as the down payment, with a credit score of over 780. All right, and we're only looking at 30-year fixed loans, which means that as a buyer, you'd have to come up with $343,000, which is, that's a big chunk of change. But check out what we've got. We're only getting 2 loans. Normally, you get 6, and you're getting 2. So, and also keep in mind, the best one is 6.144, which isn't bad. That's great, right? We were seeing a second ago that the average is 6.81. Well, look what it's going to cost you. Those are your fees, points, $18,947 in points, processing fee, underwriting fees, loan document preparation, for a grand total of $20,942. And your 8-year cost is $642,489, an amount you could use if you had it in cash to buy a home just about anywhere else, right? So just in the cost of the loan, right? I mean, it's crazy numbers. And then your monthly payment's $8,226. Just mind-blowing. Now, if you're able to put down more, let's say you could do 25%, a little bit of a change. I mean, obviously the monthly payment's going to go down because the principal's less. But you don't even get, what I find interesting is you don't even get more loan options, right? When I do a search in other locations, like for instance, let's do 1.3. There you go. See? So what does that tell you? When you see stuff like that, you have to think, financial institutions are not wanting to get involved in loans over a certain amount. How interesting, in certain markets. And again, as I said, I've tried this in various San Jose zip codes, in the Morgan Hill zip code and the Gilroy zip code, and get the same results. But whenever I start to see stuff like this, it suggests to me a lack of confidence moving forward in financing more expensive loans. And I think that represents a concern on the part of lenders that home values might be going down, or that there's a threat in that market. It's a more risky zip code. And again, this is all the way from San Jose down to Gilroy that this is true. So just kind of keep that in mind. I think it's just an interesting side note, right? When you see a dramatic drop in the number of lenders that are willing to step up and say, yes, I'll loan you money to buy this house. Because let's see I bet the line is right at 1.5, right? Let's go to 1.4 and see if we still have them. Now let's go to 1.5. Oh, okay, 1.6. Okay, and there you go. So the line appears to be at 1.6 million. Above, at that or above, there are far fewer financial institutions who want to get involved with lending you money. And remember, these are all advertising opportunities. This is all places where these banks want you to notice them and approach them, and they don't even want to play in these waters where the numbers are like this, right? So things like this make me want to go read other articles and find out what information are lending institutions getting this sort of idea from, right? Because if you've been with me for a while and you've done the whole coffee and real estate live chat thing in past months, you know that when we do this and we run these numbers, we've done 1.7 million before and come up with plenty of lenders, but we're not right now, which I think is very, very interesting. All right, next. Let's take a look at some basic numbers. We can see what the medium numbers are globally, right? And now that we've kind of reviewed all of the numbers for our local area, we can see we're very much blowing things out of the water. Now, the median listing prices, and I don't know, I'm not sure why. I prefer average. I guess median has its place. I like average as a number myself, but down 0.3% year to date. And we can see that listing prices for us, if we look at the county, is up 5.2%. If we look at new listings, nationally, it's up 7.5%. For us, new listings are up 6%. So not quite as high, but I would argue that given the fact that we are selling so few of them, that's kind of the thing. And time on market is 5 days slower. And we saw from our days on market numbers that in the county overall, we're about there too. We're about 5 days slower. So just to kind of get a calibration between us and the rest of the country. Let's see here. These are, and you know, I like to show these just because it's sometimes interesting to see where the quote unquote hottest markets are. Notice there's not a single California city on this list. In fact, almost all of it's East Coast, Massachusetts, Connecticut, New York, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Wisconsin. And it depends on what metrics you're using. I'm not sure I would 100% go along with the metrics that they're using. But again, Kansas City, New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore. As someone who's been to Philadelphia, no thank you. Houston. My son's actually just moving back to California from Houston right now. No thanks. But again, maybe that's just my bias floating around in there. Next, I wanted to hit this one because I thought it was interesting because I don't completely agree with this. I disagree with it so much I find a need to consume coffee to even discuss it. So, 8 home improvement projects that add value to your home. And I'd love to see numbers on this. Maybe it's just a global versus local market thing. But there's a couple of dumb ones in here, so let's talk about it. 1, garage door replacement. They're not talking about the door between your house and your garage. They're talking about the garage door, right? The one you open to enter and exit with your vehicle. And that's just goofy. It depends on a lot of things. It depends on the condition of your garage door. Now, if you're someone who is looking at homes and the garage door is beat up, absolutely. That looks crappy and it's bad. And I'm also a garage door guy. I think it's amazing that in the United States, we have this standardized ugly garage door on every home impacting curb appeal, and it's a canvas that faces the street that everyone will see, and almost nobody bothers to take any time to make something cool, right? And I've seen some awesome garage doors. But I'll tell you what, the garage doors I think are awesome and that make a statement would definitely not generate ROI for you, a return on investment for you. In other words, it would cost you far more money than it would increase the home, what the home would sell for, or shorten the selling period to offset holding costs, right? Why this is stated in this way blows my mind. However, if you've got a really bad damaged garage door, yeah, and I would say that you should do that simply because seeing something like that isn't just a conclusion of, wow, that garage door really looks bad. It is subconsciously, consciously, people are going to start thinking about deferred maintenance. They're going to start thinking, well, if they've let their garage door be like that, who knows what else, right? All the things I can't see that are now assumed in my mind to be wrong with this property are reflected in your dented garage door. Now, in my case, my garage door is all wood. But it's painted, so you can't tell that it's all wood, but it's externally, visually, it looks like your standard garage door, right? It just, I mean, if you look at these, right? Mine doesn't even have the windows, but it just has the same slats and all that other kind of. It's a very generic looking garage and doesn't take advantage of the fact that it's all wood. In fact, I considered taking on the project of stripping it and restaining it, and it's such a huge job. I don't know. Okay, update the entry door. Sure. Again, if your entry door is distressed, I think it's a way to go. I had a listing on a property here in Morgan Hill where the garage door was in ridiculous shape. So for my sellers, I took it off the hinges, I sanded it, I refinished it, and it looked amazing. So didn't have to do that. Just had to refinish it. Obviously, a fiberglass door or other types of hollow core doors or other weird cheapo doors, not so much. But yes, I think a front door can it's about, is it a positive or negative visual experience? Next, refresh landscaping. Yeah, I agree with that. Replace windows. So yes and no. Again, if they're dual pane, that's all anyone's really good. I do not get a lot of buyers who are focusing on how old are these windows. Sometimes it's a style choice. There may be styles that are visually unappealing simply because they're outdated. But if they're dual pane and there's no glass damage, I find buyers don't care. So replace flooring. Again, absolutely, if it's distressed, particularly carpets. And there's a variety of reasons. One, if it's visually a bad looking carpet or bad looking flooring, replace it. The other bonus is you'll get a smell in the house after you replace that stuff that people like. It smells like newness, and that is something that people do. Story from a past listing. Had a home that had really worn, not great carpeting, and there was a little hint of a stink coming off of the carpeting. Strongly suggested to my seller that we replace it. We only needed like 1,300 square feet of it, and at the time I think that was going to cost us like $1,000 and something bucks. I can't remember what the number was, but I said... and we had it on the market for a very long time. Feedback from buyers was, yeah, the carpet's stinky and gross. And I said, here's my deal to you. I am so sure this will solve all problem that I will pay to replace the carpet in this place, and we will sell within a month. Did it. First weekend I held it open. Someone who had liked it previously but hated the carpet loved it and made an offer immediately. So we sold it in less than a week after we changed the carpet to someone who'd seen it before and decided it was horrible because of the carpeting. And with the new carpeting, decided it was a thumbs up for them. So it absolutely can make a huge difference. Update bathrooms. Yes. If it needs updating. Adding a bathroom is a big deal, particularly in our county. Then the costs, it really depends. If you've got a one bedroom or a one bathroom home, yes, adding a second bath is huge. If you've got a two bathroom home, less so, right? But you're not even making filter. You're not conquering the filter if you've got a one bath house. Almost all buyers that I work with, their search strings say I want a minimum of 3 bedrooms and a minimum of 2 bathrooms, or maybe 1.5. Once you break out of just having one bathroom, the number of buyers who are going to see your home through the search engines is going to quadruple. It's going to dramatically increase your exposure. So under those circumstances, yeah, absolutely. If you can do it, adding a second bath is totally worth it. In terms of just updating it, my bathrooms, for instance, very 70s looking, very 70s and 80s looking. So one of the things I'm going to do is update my bathrooms. I've already updated my kitchen, which is the next thing. Replacing faucets, old light fixtures, paint cabinets. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the paint the cabinets thing. If you do this, you have to do it right, or that paint's going to peel right off. Replace the roof. Sure. If you've got a home with a roof at end of life, that could become an issue. However, no one's going to see it when they come look at their house. No one is going to not fall in love with your house because the roof is old. And it can also be a negotiation thing. So in the world I live in, when I encounter a house for a buyer that is a roof that needs to be worked on, I will usually find out from roofing contractors, roofers, what it would cost to replace. 9 times out of 10, sellers haven't figured that number out yet. And I will take the number the roofers tell me plus 5 to 10 grand and ask for that as a credit to the buyers. And that works out great. We end up replacing the roof, and my buyers end up getting a bonus in terms of how much the price of the home has been reduced. But that's sort of it. That's the quick run through that I wanted to hit. Another item I saw here was 8 questions to ask before buying a house with solar panels. And this is an interesting one. I don't disagree. You should absolutely get the handle on this, and get a lowdown on how your system works. Sold a home recently that had a total Tesla thing. So they had the solar panels, they had Tesla power walls, all owned. That's kind of the ideal, right? Not a super old system. But one thing you have to realize is that many systems are leased, and that is a huge potential pain in the butt. Dealing with some of these companies that do the leased systems is a huge deal. In a buyer scenario a year or two ago, we actually put into the deal that the seller had to pay off the solar panels, which represented, I think, a $25,000 expense for them. And they ended up going with that. Owning is better. And you also want to know the life of these things. You want to know what the life expectancy is, what's the expected usefulness of the batteries that are being used and the solar panels, and where do these physical things sit in that timeline right now? Are they 80% of the way through their useful life? If so, that's something you want to know. If they're only 20% of the way through their useful life, you want to know that too. Let's see. And in knowing if you're going to save on energy costs, you're going to want to ask for 12 months of power utility bills from the seller to get an idea of what their savings is. And if this is a very recently installed system, you may even be able to see before and afters of what they were spending before for their utility bill versus after. So just things to keep in mind. All right. I think we already kind of covered this. This is year to date of 2025. Active listings up 28%. We're up 37%. It bugs me that they don't do year over year. They just do year to date, but we already kind of covered those numbers. Next, single family starts fall amid rise in unsold housing inventory. And some people are going to freak out about this, but I don't think a lot of this is a problem, because what we're finding is that the inventory of brand new homes is increasing, and we're at a weird influx period. We're not there yet, but one thing that tends to happen is when we get into a scenario like this where demand drops so much, because remember, brand new homes tend to cost 15 to 20% more than existing homes. And what you're going to find is that these prices are going to go down as home builders get more desperate to liquidate these properties. We had this happen here in Morgan Hill with some properties off Butterfield where they just couldn't get them sold in the 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11 timeframe. And the prices just ended up dropping and dropping and dropping until you could just get some amazing deals on brand new homes. Now, here's something else to consider about new construction. I do occasionally represent buyers who are buying a new home. And I realize that's not horribly common. I do it maybe twice a year, once a year, probably. Maybe some years I don't do it, and then the next year I'll do 2 or 3 for some reason. But I think having representation of your own, even when you're buying a new home, is a good idea. I always have thought that. It's even more important now because, sadly, I have noticed over the last decade or so a drop in the quality of new home construction. So one of the things that we'll do, just like any other home, we'll get a home inspection done. And I am finding that these home inspections are finding just as many things wrong with brand spanking new construction as we find with a home that's 20 years old. And some of it is creepy. Usually with a 20-year-old home, you're going to find things that aren't infrastructure related per se, right? You're going to find things that maybe just with age, something has happened. What I'm finding with inspections that we're running on brand new construction today is poor construction. Joists that aren't connected properly or insulation that's not done properly. Stuff that's just fundamentally wrong that actually represents a threat to the physical stability of the structure. And And that is a big concern, and it's a big change. Let's see, what's the oldest one I can remember? So I helped someone buy a brand new home in 2011 or 12, I think, and we did an inspection, and really nothing much to talk about. It was actually pretty clean. Nothing structural. There was a couple of weird things. There was some landscaping, water stuff type of things that were there. But more recently, I had the one I did last year for someone. They actually ended up not buying the new house because of all the construction related things that were bad. Because figure this, if they were this bad at building that house on the stuff you can see, right, which is the attics, which is the crawl space, how bad is it in the walls where you can't see it? And that's where all your electrical is. That's where all your pipes are. If that kind of cavalier attitude that is showing in how the home was nailed together, what about all the other trades that came in and built that house where you can't see their work, right? Not sure what the primary motivator is there. Not sure what the prime cause of that is, but maybe it was just we need to build as fast as we can, as soon as we can, etc. But it's not good. So just as more new construction becomes more affordable, because I think that's what we're going to see for new buildings that haven't sold yet, particularly like in Phoenix, right, where the market's really taking a crash. Absolutely get yourself an inspection. Don't buy any house at any time. I don't care if it's 2 hours old or 2 decades old. Get an inspection, and be ready to walk away from that house if it's not going to do it for you. All right. Signs of balanced housing market emerge as inventory approaches 6-year high. Yeah, that's a thing. I thought I'd share this with you just really to show this. The month-over-month home value index inventory. Let's see, inventory. There we go. That's the one I wanted to see. It's not letting me change. There we go. Here we are in 2025. Here's where the inventory is. And it's just going to keep going. It's just going to keep going. And this one that it's kind of on track with is 2020. Look at how quickly we jumped up to that 2020 level. And I think this is just going to keep going. I think this keeps going crazy for us. So something to keep in mind and a good buddy of mine, boy, he just bought in Phoenix. He closed escrow like 3 months ago. And at the time I was trying to tell him, I think it would be in your best interest to wait, because I don't even think he was buying in a neighborhood where there were plenty of listings, relatively newer homes. It's a shame. All right. So that kind of covers really the main stuff. If you've got any questions, I see we've got a new viewer. I'm not sure what platform you're on. It's not telling me. It usually tells me, but welcome. I don't know how long. I apologize. I didn't look over sooner. But if you've got any questions, feel free to share them in the chat. I'll be happy to try to answer them for you. But we've kind of hit the end of the show here. We're at almost 11 o'clock. And I usually like to leave you with getting yourself access to this tool that I provide. Now, again, I'm Robert Whitelaw. I'm a real estate broker here in California and have been since 1988. But this is a fantastic tool. Every year I do a review to find the best tool out there that'll give you the value of your home. And while you can simply come here, enter the address, and get that number, this is someplace in New Jersey, boom. Without you giving me your email address or anything, it will give you the estimated value of your home, and that's fine. But it won't give you all these other things. If you provide your email address, it'll give you that on a monthly basis, and it'll give you access to all these other tools. And all of these tools are things I suggest my homeowner clients check at least once a year, and this is doing it for you automatically every month. It gives you a lowdown on your mortgage. It knows if you tell it knows what your rate is and what kind of a loan you've got. And if the market is ever in a scenario where it would make sense for you to refinance, it'll give you that information. Plus, it'll give you a link local. I've got a local lender right here in Morgan Hill that will help you explore loan options for getting that lower rate. But it also lets you do what ifs. What if you wanted to rent? What if you want to do vacation rentals? Refinancing calculator, home purchase options, home equity, and tapping it. All that kind of stuff. So feel free to check that out. It's at soldbyrobert.com, and there's a link to it right there. But that's it. I have a less than busy Saturday planned, which is rare. So I'll probably be doing chores today around the house. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope this has been useful information for you. Again, if you'd like to reach out, find me at soldbyrobert.com. I'm always ready to help you reach your goals. And that's about it. Thanks again for sharing your time with me, folks. I will see you all next month on the third Saturday of August for another Coffee and Real Estate.